Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break.
Greetings, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to the 39th podcast of the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. And today we bring back Richard Hoover again for a new enlightenment period. And we want to talk about a couple of things, but mostly we'd like to have Richard tell us what he looks for in an employee or a prospective apprentice or something like that. And welcome, Tad. I see Tad's outside. It's a beautiful rainy day here in Monterey, which we couldn't be happier about.
Yeah.
The dog's unhappy, but we're doing great.
Well, I'm at the dog park, and I can tell you all the dogs are very happy.
So that's a really, really broad question. You want to start at any particular loose end of that, or just let me run?
Yeah, just let you run. I mean, it people come at you probably from different ways. Mm-hmm. Some call you on the phone, some probably write you letters, some probably just show up with their sleeping bag. But
yeah. And Richard, it might be interesting to hear the historical perspective as well. I mean, just because I would imagine finding people with the skills to build a guitar 30 years ago was probably considerably more difficult than it is today with the schools and such that are opening. So some of your historical perspective on this would be really fun too.
I appreciate that, Tad. And I bet that's a lively discussion amongst both people that run teams of luthiers and people looking for individual apprentices. And it could go both ways. You know, there could be quite a whine about the loss of mechanical reasoning and talents that people used to learn in school and at home. And I'll just tie that in to this. So yeah, I do have a really long, decades-long experience in both evaluating people to come work with us as a team, and the experience of what worked out over time. So let's start with the commonality, what I'm always looking for no matter what era. And those things are, probably pretty obvious. They're, teachable heart, somebody that asks questions because they want to know the answers rather than the people that ask questions because they want to tell you the answers. Which is the bane of anybody trying to teach anything. A passion in moderation for what we're doing, rather than somebody just looking for another job or something as a distraction that somebody wants to invest in this. I've always preferred to take on somebody that's career-minded, because there's a lot more options to work with, or you can go more in-depth teaching and look for a longer return on it. But I can also deal with shorter term people, and I've done both of those. And then finally, to find out if I can meet their expectations. And hopefully their expectations are reasonable. So one of the things that I make sure we talk about right away is what we do and what we don't do. We're not a school. We're not a program for getting a master's in luthery. However, this could have changed, but we were the only company of any size that allowed people the trajectory to learn the whole process of guitar making. So it could be a side benefit of working here that you could become a master luthier, but that's not our promise going forward. So there's a whole lot of stuff. That's always been true. But if we went back 30 years, as you said, I was looking for people with demonstrable and measurable skills in mechanical reasoning, making something whether it was models or framing houses or whatever, something that where they'd already learned the basics, and we could begin teaching them the fundamentals of Lutheran and go up from there. And today, I'm going to say, of course, we're speaking in broad generalizations. I cannot interview somebody with those expectations. I have to start with the assumption that they're going to learn those things here. And you can well imagine the burden that puts on us as a company, that we're no longer developing skilled people to make guitars. We're developing the basic skills to make anything before we teach them how to make guitars. So I'm going to pause there. I've got a lot more, but there's a good start.
It's that's a very organic transition. It
That's
really
right.
is. It really is. I'm sure there's a lot that come with just stars in their eyes,
Absolutely.
and then that diamond in the rough might be the cabinet maker, or,
That's right.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, or the apprentice jeweler, or the person whose father made prosthetic limbs, anything that gave them a chance to work with their God-given hand-eye coordination and the development of practice and skills. And those are two different things. Somebody coming in, as I refer to this, your God-given ability to coordinate your hand-to-eye to do really fine work. And we're not all blessed with that. Some people have other skills and talents, and this kind of work will drive them insane. So that has to be sorted out pretty quickly.
You've got to find somebody that can stay on something.
That's right. And it used to be, I'm really cautious about this, back in the day, the focus used to be more on people that had already proven that before they came in here. And those people still exist, but it's a diluted labor pool. There's so relatively smaller percentage of people that have those kind of skills. We have to take a chance more often. So I go back to the fundamentals of character, honesty, teachable heart, willingness, engagement. And we have a special challenge. And I always go over this with people. And I tell them that it's not they don't have to give me the right answer. They have to give themselves an honest answer. Is doing your best is a cool concept, but are you willing to do that every day? 8 hours a day, and doing your best as the old homily, as a reward in itself, rather than withholding your best because the man doesn't deserve it, let's say. That is what's necessary to reach our quality level. And our quality level is such that it goes against the grain of most manufacturing wisdom. Most quality is attained by either reward or threat. I'll pay you better if you do a good job, or I'll kill you if you don't. And both of those have their limits, right? You only go so far with that. The only way to get the quality that we're looking for is by the personal engagement of the person working, that they want to see the final product come out of something they'd be really proud with, and they really enjoy having achieved that as a team. That's not for everybody, because that requires communication, self-critique, correction of the process in communicating to others, and the realization that it's not personal. The problems that may appear could be to a setting that got knocked off, or a bit that's dull, and it only shows up in the next process. And since it's not one person working the whole guitar, that has to be communicated back and forth without a sense of retaliation or payback or whatever us humans like to do to each other. And that's hard, that is, that not only requires a lot of effort on my part, but it also requires getting people that can first understand that and find that desirable. Sorry to make it so complicated, but there you go.
No, I don't think it's complicated at all. In a prior life, I have some pretty strong background in photography,
Mhm.
And one thing that we were always concerned about when we were looking 15 years ago at people coming out of school was that they didn't have that hand-eye coordination, because everything they do is on the keyboard,
Yeah.
where they would stand in a dark room, and they would expose a piece of photosensitive paper, and then they would have to wait 3 minutes, and in the meantime, they're standing there, and they can't really do anything. They can listen to music, but they have to stand there, and it's a hand-eye thing versus and they're up and they're moving around, and your body's works better when it's moving around than when it's sitting in a chair.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing that uh, you're now seeing the results of that.
I have great sympathy and tolerance and as much patience as I can muster for this transition, because I come from there, and I've used this anecdote before, but it really fits well right here. As a young man, I had such a perspective of self, a specialness or whatever, that I seriously thought that practice was for people that weren't as smart as me. That, if I just applied myself, I get it right away. It's willpower, not, not practice. And it wasn't until I got good at some things that I realized that, if you do something over and over again, you can actually get good at it. How about that? Maybe that's what they meant by practice. And we're in a day and age of instant gratification. And you just mentioned that, and I've become like that. We all have. You want results, you don't want to have to go through a navigational maze to get your information. You want it now. You want to press a button and move on. And this is a process that goes back to a time when, let's say, we go back several generations and people might have made like a dozen decisions a day. Seriously.
Yeah.
In their daily life, they might have made a dozen decisions. And today, on average, hundreds, for some people, thousands. We're busy little beavers, and we don't want to stick around and wait for something to happen. There's not an app for being a luthier. So this isn't a complaint about the people, mind you. I want to be very clear about this. We're dealing with the same quality of human being, the same, fears and hopes that we always have. We're just starting from an earlier point on that, and it makes the process more time consuming, and there's a lot more gamble involved in investing in a person to train them.
Well, and you've also had some very kind of key employees that have been with you for a long time.
Sure.
And really understand that philosophy and are right there in line with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps with the consistency. I guess I'm surprised. I guess I assumed that with the various Luthery schools and everything else that had been open, that it would probably be easier to find a new employee. But I guess maybe what I'm taking from what you're saying is that they have to learn your way and your philosophy and your techniques. And it may be easier to start with a ball of clay than something that's already been made into a teapot.
Well, that's great, Chad. I love the perspective. Here's one thing to put into that. There's several schools around the world, but of the three major ones in the U.S., what do you think they turn out? Maybe 90 prospective luthiers every half a year or something like that. And in the past, there was a kind of a cultural paradigm of, okay, you work for somebody, get your chops down, and then you go out on your own. It's the old apprenticeship system, right? I'll work for somebody else, I'll learn what they know, and then I'll have a foundation because I know better and I'll change the world. That was me. Today, people graduating from school don't have to find somebody across the country and go experience arcane knowledge. They can go on the internet and find methodology, instruction, connection with most people around the world. So there's no reason for them to think they have to spend their time in an apprenticeship or working for another person. They can go right to the goal, right? And you see that, and I don't dismiss anybody that's succeeded in that or anybody that's even tried and failed. You know, I'm an impatient guy. I would have done that. So imagine this, you know, you could go to a school, or why don't even skip that? You know, the problem is we don't have the high school or the junior high wood shop where you learn your basics. But given, you know, putting that aside, you could go online and you can learn how to build a guitar. You can buy everything needed. You can buy the tools, and you can skip the geometry involved and try to figure out how to bend a radius back and make it come out without dips and lumps in it, because it's all there. Right? You don't have to learn these things the hard way. So why not? If you're of means, you can buy the tools, you can buy the materials. If you or a friend can do a website and you can make a credible guitar, and why not? Again, if you have that gift of hand-eye coordination and the willingness, you could probably do an instrument after, let's say, 5, 6, 7, and be in the world market. Seriously. It really helps if you have on your CV that you worked with Irvin Samoji, or you worked with Richard Hoover, or you worked with somebody else, because that'll open doors for you, give you credibility. But there's a real shortcut, and I'm going to say this to any aspiring luthier right now. You got to deliver, you got to do your stuff, and it can't be a sound port or an arm bevel that's already been done. It has to be fundamental, super quality and super great sound and super playability. But if you can do that, and if you can get listed in North American Guitar or something like that, you're there. You don't need me.
It's in surfing, what's happened is they all want to be big wave riders. You know, they all want to have the glory of it. And if you think about getting on an 80-foot wave and then having it fall on top of you, it's day changing. And it's a thing that you have to have the experience, you have to have the knowledge. And what happens is these guys get a big board, they stumble into the lineup, and they get 4 feet down and they fall, and they live, and they're heroes. They're now on the tour, you know, and it's
That's
like,
great.
yeah, you know, you're just, it's wrong, because there's no respect for what they're doing.
Well, you know, Richard, we're those people. We just happen to be, you know, like 4.5 decades beyond that. But I was that guy as a young man, and I'm serious. I was ready, and I did start my own university. I would have gone and tried out for the Tour de France. You know, there was nothing that I thought I couldn't do from willpower alone. You know, I chose guitar making as my creative expression in this, and that path took me, you know, a long time to get there. But if I could have seen a faster, easier way, I would have taken it in a heartbeat, because at the time I felt exceptional and deserving of those kind of rewards. Today I know better. And this is the difference between the cleverness of youth and the wisdom of experience, that you know what's in front of you, but there's an easier path to it than the way I did it now. So of course, this is all about hiring people. How do you get people to come work for you? But this is a huge part of the paradigm, because I cannot even get a chance to talk to some people that would be great, would greatly benefit from working with us for some years before they went off on their own. But how do you educate people on that? How do you get that word across? I don't know how to yet. I'd like to.
That's a challenge.
It is.
It's a challenge.
Big. It requires, you know, first and foremost, what it requires is some resiliency and the burning desire to stay relevant. And you know, most of us fail as oldsters because we don't stay relevant. We don't pay attention to the changes that are going on around us, and we try to make round peg squint. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We don't get it anymore, and we try to make it work like the old ways. So today, rather than fight all this, I know what I'm up against. But to run a business like this today requires so much more than it did even a couple of decades ago. And that's a whole discussion in itself. But right now, talking about the acquisition and the training of an employee that will work as a team member for enough time that you can amortize the cost of training takes more and more and more effort. And it's really a threat to our way of guitar making. And it'll be replaced by something else. That's where you stay relevant. What is that? Did I knock you a few chairs? Sorry.
Well, yeah, to some degree you did. I mean, that's the perspective of youth versus age, experience versus knowledge. I mean, you're throwing a lot of things out there that are really, really interesting. I know I'm not a luthier. I do some woodworking, and I know that the difference between some of the things I see on YouTube and on the internet and the things that you hear when the machine is running or feel when the tool is going through the wood or whatever else, none of those things are ever going to come across in the highest quality audio video experience ever.
Amen.
You just have to do it. And until you get those kinds of feelings and experiences, I just, that's wow.
Tad, that's really beautifully put. The old system of apprenticeship is long gone. We don't have the time, patience. Nobody can pay for that kind of knowledge. How do you inculcate those very things that you're talking about? And I do it every day, but what I have to know is I can't be angry or resentful that a young person doesn't think to tell me that the machine they work on every day is starting to growl or be different, or they have to push harder or whatever, because there's no experience there for cause and effect, and there's no alarm that goes off. Where I walk through the room or you walk through the room and you go, I better check that belt or that pulley or that bearing in a hurry, or the tool's going to be out, or somebody's going to get hurt, right? So there's another we just peeled another layer of the onion there. There's a responsibility to make sure people are safe and stay healthy in this and not be damaged by their lack of knowledge. Sorry, I really took off.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing is working with employees, again, not in necessarily a lutherie or woodworking viewpoint, but you will find that there are people who want to cut corners.
Would be me.
No matter how often you tell somebody not to do something because it's not safe or because they might hurt themselves, they have a feeling that, that applies to everybody else. I mean, I can get away with it. And when you're working with machinery and tools and dangerous stuff, that kind of an attitude is not just dangerous to that one person, it's dangerous to everybody. It's kind of scary because some of those people you can't train out of that. You kind of, I know I've had to let people go, and just kind of with the assumption that someday something terrible is going to happen to them, and that's when they'll learn. But I can't afford to have it happen with me.
You're right on the button. I think this is kind of important as a message to anybody that's thinking of scaling beyond working themselves and working with other people. You know very well how books about success are written. You luck into a success and you reverse engineer and make it look like you did it on purpose, right? So in working with people to make something, here's something you can absolutely count on. No matter how well you establish standards of procedure and directions on how to do something, once you step away, all of us humans will do two things. We'll look for a quicker way to do it, and we'll add process to correct for problems that we perceive, right? So as a business, you will suffer it taking longer to do what you used to do by yourself, and you'll wonder why. And that's where it comes from. It's people's good intentions to improve the process or to correct for something that happened upstream. Let's go back to the dull bit. This thing is not fitting the way it used to. So I'll make a little jig and fixture that allows me to align it, put it together, and make it work. The bit could be changed, but you've added that process, that item to your SOP or your standard procedure permanently, and you increase the time. Multiply that by 20 people by a year, and all of a sudden you're losing money, and you wonder why. Because you haven't kept people accountable to those standards and procedures. Now balance that with this. You want those people to be able to put in new ideas for improvements that you can vet, test out, apply, and be better at doing your business. So you better have a structure to take in those ideas, suggestions, and informations and test them out and implement them so that they can participate. But you also got to let them know, don't you ever change something on your own. You like that?
That one's hard. Yeah, no.
Sound familiar? Yeah. Well,
people
that's
seem to think they're really smart if they can figure out a way to fix a problem without letting you know. When in reality,
that is us.
No,
That is
you
us humans,
gotta
yeah.
let me know.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing, they may sound like a diversion or a rabbit hole, but that's tying directly into both getting people to come to work, training them, and having them be, contribute to the team effort. And if somebody's not willing to follow that and understand why, it's going to be a problem. It'll be a problem. And, of course, I cannot do all of it myself because, I have a pretty big wheel to turn here and make sure everything works. So I have to inculcate that information, not only to the luthiers, but I got to teach that to the managers and have them understand the nature of that. So I'm thinking about when I make a hire, how successful are we going to be to get that person to buy into the what's best for the group rather than the individual.
Well, yeah, and we've been talking about primarily luthiers and people who are building the guitars, but you have a whole other kind of team of people that it takes to run a company. And that same approach has to apply across the board. And everybody has to understand what your goals are and what the hopes and desires and attitude and philosophy and all that. I mean, just
it's much. I don't want to scare anybody away, Tad. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's much easier than that. You come in, you have a cup of tea, and you sit at your bench. And when you really feel like it, that's when you work on the guitars. When you don't feel like it, you don't, because your heart's not in it, right? And eventually, you finish the guitar, send it to the customer if they're still there, and life is good.
Well, I can imagine the frustration, because having on a couple of tours of the shop, I've seen the, should we call it the reject pile? The ones that because a tool slipped, because something happened, and you're looking at it from 15, 20 feet away, and it's like, oh my God, that's got to be salvageable. It's so beautiful, and you're like,
that's right.
Nope, it's not right. And that's all there is to it. And that's got to be hard if you have an employee, because I would feel horrible if I got a guitar, that far along, and suddenly the bit and the router slipped, or the clamp on a guide wasn't quite tight enough, and something just got off a little bit. That's got to be a horrible feeling.
Well, that's a key. That's very much a key, Tad. I don't want anybody to feel bad about anything, but I do want people to be motivated to do better by finding things like that really unpleasant and they'd like to avoid. So let's just talk in general about a workplace and the management of a workplace. If people don't know the consequences of their failures and there's no accountability, it's just something else during the day. You break it or you don't, and you move on with that. That's where, for our quality control, people have to be each one personally engaged in what they do. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of love, frankly, to work with people and ensure that.
That's a skill that I think is not a lot of managers or bosses have gotten down very well. I think that's one of the problems with so many businesses, is accepting the humanity of employees and of situations, and learning to cope with it in a reasonable way.
Boy, fun. You know,
So
I didn't know this stuff 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's all progressive. I learn as I go. And I promise you, you know, in the next 70 years, I'll really get this down.
I'm finding as I get older, more and more, I feel like, you guys will understand it in another 10 or 20 years.
But isn't that true, Ted? I mean, I have to have this conversation with people sometime. It's like, you know, I can say, I got empathy for why you did this. I understand I would have done it too. But these are the lessons you got to learn to work here. And if you aren't learning them, I'd prefer you go someplace else and learn these basics and then come back and work for us. And that goes back to our hiring. It's hard to find people that have had that experience and can come in both knowing how to work and the cause and effect of their actions. It's not how good a reason they have for not performing to expectations. It's how often they perform to expectations that they actually get paid for. Yeeks, guys sound like somebody's father.
Wow. Yeah, that's well, before we get to you kids get off my lawn, how is the shop doing? What's going on at the shop? What's new and exciting? I mean, are we getting closer, you think, to being able to get together in person and being able to do a podcast from the shop and show people what's going on?
I'll do that. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Let's finish.
No, how is things going? How soon are we going to be able to like all get together and party? You think we'll make it by Christmas?
Well, luckily we can speak in shorthand on this because we've all been through the same experience and many, many times. You know, last August, we were over it and we were done and we were ready to get back to normal, and Omicron came and changed everything. Before that, it was Delta. So as the shop, we've tried to keep a stasis. You know, we're still wearing masks, we're distancing, we run our HEPA filters, we take precautions, we wash our hands. The news that comes to us is, as you well know, is not health and safety. It's tempered or polluted by economy. And so when the city tells us, oh, relax, do this, go to restaurant and so forth, it's, you know, it's a day later than we weren't supposed to do that. I'm not confused. I understand the moving target of science with this. So we're not giving tours yet. We're not on a normal schedule, if we ever will be. And I don't plan on exhibiting at the NAMM show because of that reason. That comes in June. And we're still not doing big events. Will we do that by the first of the year? Oh God, I pray that we will. You know, this is hard and it's wearing, and it's an assault on our spirit right now that we can't maintain our relationships from getting together. Here's my target, and it's all self-serving. I really, really want to go to Woodstock in October to get together with my other antique luthiers and see what's new in the Luthiers Invitational. That's a real nourishing thing for me, and I haven't been able to do it for a couple of years. There's friends that I really feel close to that I've known for almost 30 years around the world, and I may never see them again now that the international show in Frankfurt is all but died, right? There's no commonality to bring us all together. So you could bet I'm really, really motivated. Long answer there. The short one is I have no idea what's in store here, but we're ready. We're ready when it is.
Yes, no, it would be so nice to put some of this stuff behind us, and I don't know. I mean, we may never get back to normal. It's hard to say. We may just have to adjust to a new normal. Well,
adaptability, resilience. I've been to a restaurant a few times,
Ooh.
and that was really, really big. And my situation, I've got, immediate family immunocompromised. I got to be really careful in
Mm.
what I do. And, and I can do more than I used to. So, gratitude for the small things.
Yeah, we actually have been to restaurants 3 or 4 times, but we have only eaten outdoors. And that works fine for me, as long as the weather stays nice. But boy, when
We're
we get
lucky
back
with
to
it.
the heavy rainy season, I'm sure hoping we can.
Yeah, that sky behind you is really unusual, because we've had 28 days of perfect weather. Man,
Yeah.
I'm spoiled.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
spoiled.
we're getting just enough water that I have a few raindrops, but it's not going to do anything for us. Yeah, the whole drought situation is something else that we don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. I never expected to be a cotton top in the end times. I thought I'd either be young and could run faster than most people, or I'd be long gone before weird stuff like this started to happen. So off we go. Well, I can give you some bright spots, which is what
Yes,
you're asking
please.
for. So, the realities of running a business is this stuff we're talking about, the challenges of having to train people longer, or train them in more things, get less efficiency. All that has to be balanced out with something else to make it work, because I can't change the culture. I can't change human beings. I've got to work with what I have. So here's a great one. Is we still do nitrocellulose lacquer because I believe it's part of the it's part of the things that accumulate to give us the quality and the sound that we do. So I can defend the use of nitrocellulose. It's fussy, it takes a lot of skill. And if you want to really do it right, you should let it cure after application for, pick a ridiculous number, 30 days, even longer, 6 weeks. So
Sure.
for people not into manufacturing, imagine this. You build 60 guitars and you put them on a shelf. And even though they move, you still had to invest in that 60 guitars on a shelf. So in essence, you bought all that work and you parked it permanently. That's a lot of money, right? But that's what it takes to do a right guitar, to have that much cure. So.
Right.
We've looked at other systems, polyurethane, UV, and so forth, but anything that took us away from nitrocellulose was compromising our fierce devotion to ultimate quality, and we stayed with it. So here's the breakthrough. There's been many ways to try to accelerate cure, including infrared radiation, like the Denny's hamburger.
Yeah.
Sitting on the shelf, and that's a short wave, right? That's a short wave infrared that keeps things hot, or heats them up actually, and it heats the surface really, and keeps the interior heat from escaping. So what's been developed now is a long wave radiation that just shortcut works more like a microwave. Let's say it's more like it heats the whole thing from the interior out, and will cure nitrocellulose in a shorter period of time. It was ridiculously expensive technology, but there's a guy that's developed this specifically for curing finishes. And we've tested, and now I believe, to the point of taking a big financial risk, that this will work. And so we just had all the stuff arrive on a pallet and boxes yesterday, and we will be putting this together on Thursday. And what it promises to do is to take those 60 guitars that are waiting in cure and be able to cure them in a matter of hours. And most of that is handling. The exposure time is minutes, but hours to do that. And then we'd have a finish that is cured, hard enough to process, buff and shine, and have that stability. And we have the chance to harvest that 60 guitars worth of cure. Now that was a complicated explanation, but imagine the breakthrough on that, right? It's almost like
amazing.
Yeah.
So
We had a month's worth of work we had to do, and now we may eliminate that at a considerable cost, which has to be balanced, service the debt, make sure everybody gets paid in the meantime, and hope we didn't overlook anything that would make it not work. And I'm confident we're headed. There's no compromise to the process, to the guitar at all. It's not cheating. It's kind of like, well, I'm not going to go into an analogy here, but I'm not about, the reason we're doing this so I don't have to compromise the quality of our guitars by changing from nitrocellulose. So you can be sure it's not a shortcut at the expense of quality. I'll show it to you when you come in.
So this is literally, I mean, you're going to be able to spray a guitar and 3-4 hours later, you're going to have a cured finish.
Well, just because of the handling and the process, the coordination and the flow is probably going to take more like 2 or 3 days you know, because what you do would you would spray, cure from the exposure, long wave infrared, sand level, spray again, do it, and you go through that process. And when you're done, it would be a matter of hours. So yeah, we're probably going to save, we're probably down to, you know, literally hours over a couple of days to do it.
That is amazing. And you retain all of the repairability and everything else? Because I mean,
yeah, that's why we use nitrocellulose, because you can make it look new again if it's damaged. Our guitars are not disposable. You can't throw it away when it gets bumped. So this is also for our repairs. It's a dream come true because we can apply nitro or a drop fill and cure it, and not, you know, right now we take a couple of weeks, you know, apply, sand, dry, sink, sand, apply, dry, sink, over 2 weeks to do a repair. And now we should be able to do that within hours.
Wow. That's exciting news. I was
able to get a hobby.
Yeah. I remember I did a tour of the theyre factory up in Canada many years ago, and they were spraying the UV cured finish. And I was amazed that they had a turntable. They would spray a guitar, put it on this turntable, rotate it. A guitar would come out the other side that was fully cured.
Yeah.
By the time they sprayed the next guitar and put it on the turntable, that one they just put in was fully cured. And I was like, this is amazing.
And on the UPS truck, yeah.
But then the reality of being able to touch it up or repair it or almost anything else, that reality was, I just lost interest in it entirely.
Well, yeah, you know, this takes a quick preface is like, you know, I'm a huge fan of the cheapest guitars possible because it allows more people to more music and make the world a better place. So the people making inexpensive guitars, and this isn't theyre, but overseas, do an invaluable service for humanity, right? So the faster they can go, the better. We are trying to do the same thing in improving the lot of all of humans through music, but we're also trying to give them the best possible tool in order to do that, and that we will not compromise, and so we can't grab these huge efficiencies. This is a super rare opportunity to take a big chunk out of time, not like 5 minutes, but you know, 5 weeks.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, speaking for all humans, I will tell you, we are all incredibly impatient, especially when it comes to something like a new guitar. So, you know, shaving those weeks off that's big news. That's really exciting. We'll look forward to that. Actually, well, maybe someday we'll get a tour of the shop and we'll get a chance to see it in action or something.
Oh, you know, we can always fit you in. And I want to say this in general, you know, because of COVID, to work our schedules, we're doing a 4-day, 10-hour week, and we take Fridays off in general. It's a catch-up day. So coming in to visit the shop on a Friday or a Saturday when I'm available is possible. And I would, you know, carefully extend that invitation to everybody listening, with the caveat that maybe I can't do it too. So we're not nailed shut. Yeah,
you can make it work as long as it's not working or doesn't work or something. Yes,
yeah,
got it.
As long as my significant other okays it.
Right. Excellent. Well, I think that we've taken a whole bunch of your time. Mr. Newman got called away here, but I'll figure out if I can do as good a job as he is wrapping this all up. Richard, it's just wonderful to talk to you again. It's wonderful to see you. You're looking good. I'm glad to see you in the shop there. Your internet connection is so much better there than it was from home or wherever we were talking to you last.
Right. Well, with your patience, Tad, you may edit this out, but let me fit this in quickly here.
Sure.
We have a real challenge in recruitment. Because the buzz is, with graduates from the school or people out there, that somehow Santa Cruz is unlivable, that the cost of living is so absurd that there's no way anybody could be here. And as we all know in our own hometown, you don't come in as a tourist and pay the rack rate for everything. There's ways that Santa Cruz is livable, and we've become masterful at trying to accommodate people in that regard. It's a challenge, but making sure people get affordable places to live and that we can pay enough for people to live here. So for people that may have written this off because they don't think it's possible, let's talk. Let's talk about how it maybe that it could be, because we, our business here, we pay everything from a very beginning wage for people trying to learn how to build guitars to real grown-up wages for people that do administrative and management work. So somewhere in between there, your skills could fit, and we can grow you into a position of security. So there's my commercial.
Well, I can't imagine anybody not wanting to work at Santa Cruz Guitars. If I were 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years younger, I'd be giving you an application.
That's
and
sweet.
as far as the housing goes, I think that's a reality in all of California. I think it wouldn't matter where you moved. I think that people would have that same challenge in finding affordable housing.
Boy, isn't that true? It's become, any community, sizable community with a vital university is suffering that, whether it's Austin, Boulder, Nashville, New Haven, Ann Arbor, all over the country.
Yeah.
And so everybody's catching up with this. But you know what we have the advantage of? It's like the natural beauty and the quality of life here and the tolerance of people is unmatched anywhere in the world. So
Yes,
we get what we pay for.
Absolutely. No complaints from me. I'm not happy to spend the money it costs me to live here, but I'm very happy to be here. So
Good job.
we'll live with that.
God, great to hear from you. Now, I can't wait for you to get together with me and tell me about what you're doing, but I appreciate the chance to tell my story today.
That sounds great. Well, yes, I just as a closing out here, we're doing our second gig indoors. And it's a large hall, and everybody is vaccinated, and I'm actually looking forward to doing this. And I will also say, if anybody cares, our tip jar is going to the Ukrainian relief effort. We, as a band, have decided that they needed a whole lot more than us. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Your heart's in the right place. I'm proud to know you.
All right. Good to talk to you, Richard. I'll look forward to Mr. Newman setting up another call with you. And if you're ever up this way, I hope you'll stop by.
My pleasure on both counts.
All
Hope
right.
everything goes your way. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.